So, welcome all today to our webinar on 2019, the year ahead. We had an exciting year in 2018 with a lot of accomplishments, and we're looking forward this year to growing on those and working more closely with all of you, our member organizations. I'm going to run through the calendar. I'm hoping that we can have some discussion and questions at the end, but if there's something that you'd really like to ask about, feel free to type that in the chat box as I'm going through some of the events for the upcoming year. And for now, I'd like to begin, as we often do, with our prayer from Laudato Si to help ground us in our discussions today and in our journey. So if we can take a moment to calm ourselves. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life in beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen. So, diving in, we already had our first major event of the year at World Youth Day in Panama at the end of January. This is a very exciting time. We were actually able to have somebody living and working in Panama for most of last year, working closely with the World Youth Day Planning Committee to ensure that Laudato Si was woven throughout the event. We had recycling stations with 800 volunteers helping direct people to how to properly dispose of waste, as well as to try to reduce the amount of waste. We had a Laudato Si village with information about Laudato Si. There was a conference, a Laudato Si conference before World Youth Day on June 19th, where 400 young people came together to write an open letter to the church calling for change and affirming their interest in supporting the church in this work. There was also a presentation from the main stage, and at this program we launched a new program, the Laudato Si Generation, a specific youth outreach, which I'll be talking about later in the event. But it was a very exciting time, and thank you to all of the partners who were there on the ground working so hard on this as well. The next event I want to talk about is the Synod on the Amazon that's occurring this year. While the Global Synod is taking place in October, work on this has already begun through a discernment process that GCCM has been going through, as well as other organizations who want to advise on the Synod. The other reason that it's important to talk about at the beginning of this call is because this Synod is going to inform much of our work for the year, helping to ground and coordinate our campaigns. This Synod is meant to be specific on the Amazon as well as more universal, using the Amazon as a symbol of major issues that are occurring around the world, such as climate change, deforestation, attacks on indigenous communities, and the rapid dwindling of biodiversity. At the same time, the political situation currently in Brazil, with the new president Bolsonaro taking aim at environmental legislation as well as protection for indigenous communities, calls for urgent action, again emphasizing the need to pay attention to the Amazon for this year. So in solidarity with our partners and friends in Brazil, we will be using the Synod to frame events throughout the year. I would like to mention also, I see some people have raised their hands. The best way to ask a question or make a comment during the presentation will be to type it in the chat box. And at the end, when I open it up for questions, I'll be happy to open up the video for others who want to make comments. But during the presentation, those questions in the chat box will be the easiest way and the smoothest way to make sure we get through everything. But happy to address things during the slides if you can type them in. So during Lent, we will be maintaining this focus on the Amazon. Beef production is the primary driver of Amazon deforestation, and meat produces a large percentage of greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, if we shift the average global north diet away from beef, it can reduce emissions from the global north by 15 to 35%. It's one of the most impactful things a person can do as an individual is looking at their food consumption. As you can see, beef is by far the most impactful, but all meat produces greater carbon dioxide equivalent emissions than vegetables and pulses such as grains. So during Lent, we are actually asking people to, in solidarity with those who are affected by deforestation, as well as to address our own impact on the climate, extend the Lenten, the Friday fast throughout Lent, giving up meat products for all of Lent. And if that is not possible, adding at least one day to the fast. This is actually a return to our tradition when the Catholic fast did extend through all of Lent, and in fact, our Orthodox brothers and sisters still maintain a great fast, abstaining from meat and meat products. So it's really going back to our roots. This campaign is going to be rooted in our Catholic traditions and providing people with a lot of information about the actual impact that this has on the environment. So we're excited about this particular Lenten campaign. We think it can make a big impact. So we'll be producing resources on our website next week and sending resources out shortly after that for how to communicate this to your members and your own networks, as well as for everyone who is participating, providing opportunities to share challenges, share successes, and share some recipes as people look for new ways to eat. And at the end of Lent, that brings us to Earth Day and Easter. Earth Day this year is actually on Easter Monday, and so we opted not to do a major event on Earth Day itself. However, 2 years ago, when Earth Day was on Mercy Sunday, our Mercy to Earth campaign was very well received, and so we are redoing that, asking people to have an Earth Day celebration the week after Earth Day on that Mercy Sunday. After fasting in solidarity with others affected by deforestation, we ask people to celebrate with a tree planting ceremony, recognizing the importance of trees to the climate and to in our own communities and around the world. We will also be inviting the community to participate in an advocacy campaign targeting events that are occurring in the Amazon. We are still determining the exact advocacy campaign because this will be done in conjunction with partners in the Amazon and in Brazil who will be taking the lead on this, and we'll be framing our advocacy campaign to support the work that they are doing on the ground. Of course, our major event each year is the Season of Creation, running from September 1st through October 4th. We'll be continuing to invite people to celebrate creation and take part in a variety of events. We'll also be continuing to try to educate more and more Catholics about the Season of Creation, eventually having this really take hold in the church. During the Season of Creation, we will also be supporting climate mobilizations in September during Climate Week. Climate Week takes place in New York at the United Nations at the end of September each year. This year, many groups are again planning major mobilizations, urging world leaders to take greater action and a stronger stand on the climate, making more aggressive pledges on what they'd agreed to during Paris, and making sure that we are meeting our commitments. So we'll be supporting those climate mobilizations and working with our chapters and our member organizations such as you to make sure that there's a large Catholic presence on the ground. And in Poland, we will be celebrating St. Francis Sunday on October 6th. This is also the event that the Poland chapter did last year, where they focused on food waste. It was very well received, and so we'll be continuing to use this as an opportunity to work with the Catholic Church in Poland on Care for Creation. In addition to some of these specific calendar moments, we will also be planning our normal events throughout the year. Each year, we manage our Laudato Si Animators program. It occurs twice a year during Lent and before the season of creation. The applications for the Lenten campaign actually just opened once again, with emails going out this week inviting people to participate. This program, for those of you who have not participated or joined in it before, offers trainings to volunteers via the See, Judge, Act model, providing participants with a solid background in the science of climate change, in the Catholic theology around care for creation, and providing tools on how to take this into their community and organizing trainings online. We also have discussion sections online for people to share with each other their challenges, their successes, to discuss the material, and to share resources and best practices. We hope that you will assist in sharing this program as well, and if you'd like more information, feel free to contact me. We're also launching our Sustainable Facilities program this year. It's a new program with an ambitious goal of reducing carbon emissions for the church over the next 20 years, eventually achieving net zero by 2040. So we are aware that this is a very ambitious program, but we are also aware that this is the level of ambition that is needed in order to actually keep climate change below 1.5. Without these sorts of ambitious targets, we won't be able to keep climate change at a manageable level. So we will be looking for participants in our pilot program over the coming year, testing out what sort of resources are needed, what's the best way to make this accessible across different regions of the world and for institutions of varying sizes. And we're also hoping to build a network of people who can help advise others who have started to do this, or even just share their own success stories to show what really can be done in the church. If you'd like to participate in this, either sharing your own success stories or saying that you would be willing to help advise others who are going through this process, I invite you to send those to me and reach out to Marissa at CatholicClimateMovement.global. This year, we're also building our regional advocacy programs. Through the Laudato Si Animators programs, we currently have chapters or local member organizations. Many of you are probably on the call, in dozens of countries, a member network that spreads over 80 countries, and Laudato Si Animators in almost 90 countries. We're hoping to bring people together as much as possible to start building towards this work towards systemic change. Many groups are already working on this within their own communities, but we recognize that we need to go even further. We're hoping to pair the international work that we've currently been doing with local, state, and national advocacy. We're especially looking to the member organizations on the ground that we can direct people to in order to look at resources or find out what's really happening that they can tie into. This is going to be a priority for the coming year. We've recently restarted the Grassroots Organizing Working Group looking at this issue in particular. And again, we're hoping to come up with some universal principles and some toolkits for people that people can take and apply in their own local areas, and then connect them with partners and member organizations wherever possible. Our other campaign that we'll be working on is Living the Change. This is a campaign that Green Faith has led over the past year. They're asking individuals to make new choices for a flourishing world, and our personal choices to reduce our contribution to climate change. We participated in this last year, and we will be participating again this year, looking for bishops and other Catholic leaders to sign on and share that message with that community, as well as encouraging all of our network to sign the campaign and support one another in making these choices. At one point during the year, there will be a time of Living the Change where we'll be asking people to host events. Green Faith will be coordinating this as well, hosting events with a vegan potluck, where people can come together, sign the pledge, and have an educational event looking at what are really the changes that we can make in our own lives. So this campaign will be going on throughout the year with a special emphasis when we have the time of living the change. And lastly, we hope that we can continue to grow over 2019, especially in the work that we've done with member organizations. We want to make sure that we're making the best connections that we can with you. This will be the first of quarterly webinars we'll be holding throughout 2019. We'll be reaching out more often throughout the year, looking for your stories and what we can share. And so what I'd like to do now is open up the discussion, both for questions on what I discussed for the plans for 2019, as well as for you to share your own insights, your own highlights. If there's any particularly exciting things happening in 2019 that you'd like us, as well as the other member organizations, to be aware of, we'd love to hear from that. And then we'd also like to hear from you, what are we missing? What additional things can we share, resources that would be helpful, and how can we serve you better? So I'd like to open it up for questions now. You can type things in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, and I will try to open up your video screen for that. So I see some hands raised. So Sister Sheila Stone, I'm opening up yours for the moment. And Sister Sheila, unfortunately, I'm being told that you have an older version of Zoom and that I can't open it, but if you have comments, feel free to type them in. I'm sorry about that. So Adriana, I'm going to you. So you should be able to share. Adriana, are you there? All right, Adriana, if you join again, I'm trying to unmute you. Oh, are you able to share?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marisa, for this very illustrative and very clear presentation. Thank you. Thank you, really. My attention was caught by, I think, the 4 last slide that you presented about building regional advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know more about that. Can you clarify a little bit more? How do you intend to work on regional advocacy? First of all, what do you mean by that? And doing advocacy towards whom? So could you please expand a little bit further?
Sure, thank you for that. So, and I'm going to go ahead and mute you again while I'm answering. So for what we're hoping with regional advocacy is moving, working with our volunteers, our animators, and our chapter leaders to become more engaged in asking for systemic change. So this could be advocating within the church in certain contexts, urging dioceses to take on, to make sustainability plans, for instance. But we foresee most of this, and we're hoping it will be focused on political leaders, whether that's localities, state, regional, or provincial governments, or national governments. We have done some of this, some advocacy in the past, moving people towards climate mobilizations, for instance, or having petitions that were mainly towards U.S. leadership or international leadership. But so much of the work that actually happens in climate change is through this local change that can happen on, again, state, regional, provincial levels, or local and city levels. Now, we are also aware that we're a small staff in a global organization, and so we won't be experts on what's happening in each of those regions. So what the grassroots advocacy, grassroots organizing group has started to look at are what are general advocacy principles that we can put forward, what are general goals that we can identify that will make a difference in climate change, such as asking any sort of government entity to make a sustainability plan or commit to becoming carbon zero, or working with utility companies on renewable energy portfolios. So what are some general things that we can suggest to people? What are some toolkits that we can provide on how to start looking at organizing and advocacy? And then where we have enough animators that we know that this will be an issue, reaching out to an issue that they're taking on, reaching out to member organizations that may be doing this already and looking to them for guidance, and connecting our animators to those on the ground who are already engaged in advocacy to really start taking this on in a larger way. So I hope that answers it. It's still, we're still working out all of the details on how this will work. But I think that by providing general principles and giving people the tools and the connections to organize in their communities, chapters can start taking this on in a larger way.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marisa.
Thank you. Macarena Cotello, I'm opening yours up for any questions. So you should be able to talk now if you had a question. And others, do feel free to type in the chat box. Okay, we cannot hear you if you're speaking. I'm not able to unmute. All right, well, if you are able to join, let me know in the chat box and I'll unmute you again. Are there other questions from our participants or other things that you would like to share from your own work? All right, wonderful. Well, thank you. And apologies, Sister Sheila, that I'm not able to open your screen, but again, do feel free to type in the chat box. I have a question about the Grassroots Organizing Working Group. So Carol, I hope that some of the answer that I just provided helped with that. Carol DeAngelo of the New York chapter was asking on this. And yes, we are aware that some chapters are already doing a lot of work with environmental groups. And for those of you who we know are involved in advocacy, we'll also be reaching out to hear some of your stories and hopefully find some ways for you to share the work that you've done so that we can share that with other chapters who are starting to take this on. I also see a question about the links between the Pan-Amazonic Synod and COP25 in Latin America, and how from Latin America you can add to the efforts. I think this is an excellent question. We are still trying to determine the plans for COP25, but I think that there are going to be links. Obviously, the Latin American region is going to be very important to the environmental community internationally this year. It always is, but there's a lot going on. I think that when Christina discusses some of our working groups soon, she may be able to discuss more about the Amazon Synod and ways that we can work with our Latin American partners, but would also be glad to speak with you to learn more about what you are doing directly and how we can join those efforts together. And I also see another comment from Silvio Alonso from Argentina that last year she opened a WhatsApp group that is being widely used to share information, promote actions, debate issues, and that's been better than email group or other social networks. And I think this is excellent advice. We're definitely exploring how to better use WhatsApp in certain parts of the world where we have seen it be a very vibrant community. In our Brazilian animators group, they are also primarily on WhatsApp. We have some in Ecuador and our other Latin American chapters as well. But in certain regions, we have been using it. And I think that's excellent advice as well. So we'll continue to look at how we can use WhatsApp more. Other questions or comments? And if not, I will continue. All right, great. Well, if other things come up or if other questions occur to you, do feel free to type those in or to raise your hand. So I'm going to turn it over now to Christina Liana, our Associate Director, who can share about our working groups. So Christina, do you want to join?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Sorry. So it's good to be with you all. I think my video is not working at the moment, but we'll see if it opens up shortly. So I'm here just to share a little bit about how one way that GCCM operates, which is through working groups. So working groups are currently comprised of GCCM steering committee members and other representatives of member organizations. But at this time, we're really interested in opening up this process and seeing if there's other people who are interested in contributing and being a part of some of our day-to-day work. So I'm not sure, Marissa, do you have a slide of the different working groups?
One moment. I have our document. I wasn't able to get it all on the slide in time.
Okay. So I'm going to share a document, hopefully you can see it, which is our current GCCM working groups. And again, as you're listening to these descriptions, if there's any groups here that pique your interest or that you think there's somebody in your congregation or in your organization that might be a good fit, we really encourage you to reach out to the contact person. And Marissa will be sharing this list after the call.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, we have an eco-spirituality working group, which is the group that generates a lot of the content for GCCM's programs. So this includes, as Marissa mentioned, materials related to Season of Creation, materials for Season of Creation, as well as working towards this longer-term vision of integrating the season into the Catholic liturgical calendar. It's also developing materials for Laudato Si retreats. And I see, Sister Carol, that you asked a question about how that's going. So, you know, it's moving, and it's moving slowly. We get emails now and then of people who say that they're using different materials from the program. I know that one of our members recently held a retreat to about 50 religious in the Philippines using this material. I'll be doing a retreat coming up in a few months in the Boston area. So I think that more and more people are starting to use and to implement Laudato Si retreats. Another initiative of the Eco-Spirituality Working Group are Laudato Si circles, which are small groups that gather to pray and reflect and act with Laudato Si. This group also helps to develop liturgical materials around Lent and All Saints and All Souls Day. And then a couple new initiatives that we're working on is the development of a hymnal, a Laudato Si hymnal and prayer book to support all of these growing initiatives, as well as a Laudato Si Institute working group for people interested in developing Laudato Si institutes in their current areas. So as you can see, our Eco-Spirituality Working Group has got a lot of things going. So we need a lot of people. So if there's anybody interested, we hope that you can connect with us. As Marissa mentioned, another working group that we have is the Grassroots Organizing Working Group, which is looking at how individuals can help transform society and bring Laudato Si to life. So right now, the working group is trying to identify different policy asks and develop resources to empower individuals to engage in local advocacy. Another working group is the Laudato Si Generation working group. So this was launched in World Youth Day that Marissa mentioned that took place in Panama last month. And it's really GCCM's youth arm. So it's comprised of young leaders, representatives of different Catholic international youth organizations who hope to activate and mobilize Catholics worldwide. And so this group just started recently, and they're still in the process of developing what initiatives they're going to take on. But some of the possibilities are around supporting this climate strike that's happening every Friday's divestment campaign, as well as the Laudato Si Youth Animators. And then two more working groups we have are the Sustainability Initiative. Marissa mentioned that we're about to launch this. And so there's been a working group that's been developing the concept, that's been reaching out to potential partners and working on the mechanics of this initiative. And so in particular, we're looking for people who might have some kind of technical background and can continue to advise on developing this important program. And then the last working group is related to the Synod on the Amazon. This working group, but at the invitation of RAPAM, which is the church network of the Pan-Amazonian region, they invited us to not just jump into activities, but to go through a discernment process to really engage with the Synod's preparatory document. And so that's what this working group has done. And through that process, it's going to be submitting some comments to the formal Synod process, as well as make that small group discernment process public. So this working group will continue to look at ways that it can support and amplify the upcoming Synod. And so that question that came about regarding like how can groups in Latin America support the Synod, particularly in relation to COP25, it makes me think that, you know, this could be a working group that can help figure out some of those possibilities to really develop key strategies for the coming months. So again, we'll be sharing this list of working groups, but we really would be interested in having more people join and be a part of developing and implementing some of these programs on the ground.
Great, thank you, Christina. So I would love to hear if there's questions on the working groups, but also want to emphasize that we're looking for more insight and more input. And so if there are the working groups that seem like they would be of interest to you or to others in your network, you know, we would welcome your participation, and I will be sending out that full list so you see the contact information. Are there additional questions? All right. Oh, Adriana, did you raise your hand again?
Yes, yeah. Marisa, thank you. I was very interested in what Christina said about how the GCCM is feeding in the preparation of the Synod. And that's actually an interesting formula, let's say, about discerning. So can I have again, sorry, but I'm very interested in receiving further clarifications on how this has emerged as the kind of contribution that GCCM can do and how you are planning to do it. So that's a question to Christina, probably.
Sure. Thank you, Adriana. So the way that we came up with the process was when we were trying to figure out how GCCM could support the Synod, we reached out to Mauricio Lopez of RAPAM, and he invited us to not just jump into kind of our usual mode of operating, which is to begin planning, but to really pray with the preparatory document. So what we did then is one of our steering committee members works with Christian Life Community, kind of the Ignatian, the Jesuit group. And so they developed a very kind of Jesuit discernment process. It's a 3-part process that invites you to pray with the preparatory document, as well as images and of the Amazon and scripture. And so it's an invitation to engage in community and spiritual conversations and to really listen deeply to what's arising when you pray and meditate over the document. And so the fruits of the conversation were really rich. And so what we've done is we're now packaging that discernment process that we did, and we'll be sharing it publicly, and it should be on our website shortly. So that will be coming out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriana. Other questions or comments? All right, wonderful. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today and for taking the time. We appreciate the work of all of the member organizations and all of the partners. We look forward to the year ahead and how we can continue to grow this work and grow all of our relationships. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you for all of your work, and we look forward to a wonderful year. Bye all.